Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been able to know by the disclaimer that hopefully I've remembered to put into the start of the video, this is going to be a relatively serious video. I did try and I had a little lav mic, thought I'd be get a lot better, but I moved too much around to actually for it. There's a lot of rustling, so decided against it, just to do it as I normally do. So yeah, if I have forgotten to put the disclaimer in the start of it, here it is now. Disclaimer: this is a video that will contain elements of domestic abuse and suicide and severe mental health. So if that's not really your thing, or it's something that's affected you heavily, then this is not going to be the video for you. So, disclaimer out of the way. As a lot of people will know, I am a actor, writer, and attempting to become a filmmaker. So far, I've put out a few short films that aren't the greatest. I know this. It's a real learning curve for me, trying to get through it, but I've decided that I've picked a genre that fits me, and that's obviously hyperrealism, so serious, realistic filming. And as such, I have decided that my grand opening into the world is going to be a series of short films called What Is Wrong With You. Now, that series of short films is going to be focusing on the 4 major mental manipulation that is seen within domestic abuse, not just spousal, but also within family dynamics. And with this series of films, I want to make them as accurate as possible. So while this is a video to explain my idea and try and show what I'm wanting to show, it is also a call for your stories. So, as I mentioned before, the 5 main areas of mental abuse within domestic abuse is emotional blackmailing, negging, the guilt trip, love bombing, and gaslighting. Now, there is cases within every relationship where these sorts of ideas do come into play, and we end up doing them ourselves. Even when I was writing up the characters and connecting them to each of these 5 main, I found that I was seeing things that I do in relationships, and I was like, oh god, no, I've got to. So even I messaged my partner, because while writing up the negging stuff, I was like, I do that. I see myself doing that. So I had to make sure, I had to check myself there, that I wasn't actually, doing that towards my partner. Now, luckily, while she had seen it, it wasn't something that was affecting her, but it's something that I've now seen with myself and gone, right, consciously, I have to fix that. But I think at every point we've all done some level of this. So emotional blackmailing on the extreme is things like, if you break up with me, I will kill myself. Now obviously only in severe cases of severe blackmailing emotionally people do that, but things like, oh, if we don't hang out today, like I'll probably just lie in bed all day. while this doesn't seem like a major thing, it is putting that sort of pressure on people. So I have seen this in not only myself but in other, you know, relationships I've had, both romantically and just friendships. But what we will be moving on to is describing each of the sections and the characters that are connected to it. So the character we're going to be following is the young girl called Cassie, or Cassidy, as her full name, and each story is following a different aspect of her life. So it's going to be a 6-part short film series, each sitting around 20 minutes. So all in all, it'll be a whole 2-hour film. The stories correlating with each other. The first being emotional blackmailing with her boyfriend. Now, emotional blackmailing, as I said before, is the extremes being if you break up with me, I'm going to kill myself, or oh, I've spoken to this person and they also agree that you're being unreasonable, and basically just making the victim in the situation feel like it's their fault. All of these sections, like each of these things, makes the victim feel like they're the one at fault. But one that is quite strong is the emotional blackmailing, because it's not a physical thing. It hits straight to the heart, it hits straight to the head. It makes you question yourself. With the follow-on being negging, this is going to be from the mother to Cassie. Now, this is going to be a lot lighter part of the films, as negging is quite a damaging thing, but is also one that is really hard to identify. So negging is just giving backhanded comments such as, "Oh, I would never wear something like that, especially with your figure. You're so brave for that." Or, "Oh, your sister's in shape. Perhaps you should take a leaf out of her book." It's these things where they sound like they're trying to be a good thing, but they're really not. They're attacking physicalities or intelligence and just demeaning to the person. The next one is the guilt trip. Now, the guilt trip is something that we have all done and we've all experienced. The guilt trip is, "Oh, if you do that, I'm going to tell so and so," or, "Oh, I'll do this," blah blah blah. When the feeling that we have all experienced it is, if you've got siblings, is, "Oh, I'm going to tell mum," or, "I'm going to tell dad," or, "I'm going to have to tell the teacher." These are the little guilt trips, like you're meaning like, "Oh, you do this, I'm going to have to tell someone." Now, these are small things that don't massively affect you, but it would be things, and especially how I'm rating it with Cassie's sister, is that Cassie's sister fancies her boyfriend and basically is trying to guilt trip her into breaking up with him so she can have it. It will be things such as, "Oh, just because you're older, you always get everything. You never care about what I want," and so on and so on. Where this is sort of an irony in the series, where we've seen how Cassie's boyfriend treats her. So if Cassie were to break up with him for her sister, we know that if they got together, she would be in the exact same situation. The fourth film is Love Bombing. Now, Love Bombing is in my opinion, the most harmful. Which sounds strange coming from the fact that we've got, emotional blackmailing and gaslighting on the list. But love bombing is when somebody wants to basically be so involved with you that they will bombard you with gestures of love. Now, this can be any sort of love, familial, romantic, or even friendship. And it's the friendship line that I've gone with for this film. And it's Cassie's best friend. It's going to be taking place as the story goes along. It's one that is a solid film on its own, but will be sprinkled through the other five. Basically, the best friend doesn't want her to stop hanging around with her because she's got a boyfriend now. And nowhere did Cassie actually say that she would ever stop being friends with her, but she starts buying her, like, it starts with, I'll get you lunch, and then, I know you need these, and it just ranks up and racks up, where Cassie feels that she is now not only financially but emotionally indebted to her best friend, because that's who she's going to about the issues she's having with her mum, with her sister, even with her boyfriend. The final one is one that I feel that is it's the pinnacle of the filming series, and that's the gaslighting. And this surrounds Cassie's new stepmom. So, in the past, Cassie's dad has killed himself. This is why I mentioned before about themes of suicide. He's killed himself due to male depression, which I've said in previous times is an epidemic that is spreading across not only the UK but the majority of the world. So her mum is obviously widowed and ends up falling in love with her best friend, who happens to be Cassie's school counsellor. And they end up getting married, so the school counsellor becomes Cassie's new stepmom, which would be a good thing given everything that she's going through with her boyfriend, her sister, her mum, her best friend. But the new stepmom is the worst for it, because she's a counsellor. She knows exactly where to pressure and where to hit Cassie mentally that will leave the most damage. And that's why I placed her into gaslighting. Now, gaslighting is basically making the person feel like they are in the wrong, they're the ones going insane, that they are making up these things that the other person is saying. It's things like, oh, I never said that. Oh, you're just being crazy. Oh, you're making up things again, blah, blah, blah. These sorts of things that, while on their own, don't seem hard, but place it all together and it causes very severe mental damage. And that's what the stepmom is going to do. She is going to insinuate that it's Cassie's fault her dad died. It's Cassie's fault that all these things are happening to her. She is going to make her that you're the one bringing all of this on yourself. All because Cassie doesn't fit in with the new stepmom's idea of what a family is. Now, obviously, everything that I've spoken about is incredibly serious. It is all make believe. It's the character of Cassie. She's not real. The character of the mum, the sister, the boyfriend, the best friend, the stepmom, any of the characters in there are not real people, but are simply ideas. Cassie is the combination of every victim of mental domestic abuse. The boyfriend, the sister, the mum, the stepmom, they are all the combination of the abusers. And everything that I've gathered so far is stories from domestic abuse survivors. This is majority from Women's Aid, and online articles from newspapers and gossip rags, things like Take a Break and stuff like this, which is not, to be blunt, factual pieces, but the Women's Aid and the articles, they are. But the reason that I'm using both factual stuff from factual sources plus the ones out of the rag labs is simply the fact that I don't want this to be facts on the wall. Life isn't all about facts. Life is confusing and it's messy and it's all over the place, and that's what I want these films to be. I want them to obviously show what mental domestic abuse can do to somebody, but I also want it to reflect real life. I want people to watch the films and go, fuck, I was in that situation. Or shit, my friend is in that sort of situation. It's to enlighten people that these things are happening, and to push people to get involved, to try and help reduce the level of not only mental, which I've been focusing on, but also physical domestic abuse. So why am I doing this? Well, the reason that I was reading the glam rags was because I wanted human stories. And that's what I want from you. Now, I'm using the royal you, meaning a large majority of people. I want real life stories. I want stories about those who have broken out of these mental abuse relationships, be it with a partner, with family members, or even friends. I want to know the true story behind them. And as such, I am creating an email that will be put in the description below, where I would be honoured for you to send your stories to. You do not have to place your name on it. You don't have to name the abuser. You don't have to put any personal details into it. Just the story of, whether you're still in that relationship, whether you broke out of it, how you broke out of it, how it affected you in later life. That's what I want to know, so that I can make Cassie as human a character as I can, that I can make each of the other characters as real as possible. Now, there will be a personal story for myself. I was in a relationship like this. I was affected heavily with emotional blackmailing by an ex, and that will be taking precedence. I will have that in there. So these stories that I am requesting from you, you will not be alone in it. Others will be there, and I will be there. I'm using my own personal experience to try and make Cassie and her boyfriend as real as possible. Therefore, that is what I'm asking for. Anyway, let us not end on doom and gloom. this will be a positive thing. Maybe not for the actual filming or the films itself, but what will come from it, or what I hope will come from it, will be highly positive. So I now like to leave my videos on grim stuff. I will leave that for the films. But I really do hope that this is something that you'll find interesting, that you will find engaging, and that, as strange as it sounds, you will enjoy. So, as always, I've been Cameron, you've been you. I will see you all next time. Cameron out.